Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist, Theresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Okay, welcome. I am not sure how much of that you got. Seemed like some things were cutting out, so technical difficulties will happen. However, I would like to welcome today Kamini, who is a human potential coach, and she'll explain to you what that is. Welcome, Kamini.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time out to share with our audience, what you do. And I'm going to start off by saying, I actually counted. You have 25 certifications. I was like, wow, where do you find the time? Because you're also a mom. And
you know what's so funny? I don't think I've ever counted. Oh my gosh, I am a mom. I am a mom of 5 myself. They do range in age. My youngest is about to turn 12. My oldest is going to turn 24. But, I say that I'm a lifelong learner and a self-defined nerd. No, but in all seriousness, I love to learn. And when, you were saying human potential coach, and what that really means is I tried to find a way to describe what I do. And what I really do is I work with people ranging in age from teens all the way through adulthood. And I really try to meet them where they are. And so I am dealing with and working with different ways that people show up, right? So some of us are, I am a people pleaser. I'm a perfectionist. And then I have clients who are on the spectrum. I have parents who have children on the spectrum. And so for me, it has been all about learning enough so that I can meet people exactly where they are.
And I think that's always the key. We always, so often as coaches, the goal is to have people reach their potential and live their best life, however that looks. But I think most importantly is to meet people where they are. When I work with parents, they have a goal. And I was like, okay, well, let's start. Where are we now? How we can get to that goal, but we have to figure out where are we now so we can move forward, so we know which steps to take to move forward.
Absolutely. Because if we don't have that awareness, if we don't have, I say everything starts with awareness, because when we don't have that, we're kind of shooting in the dark. But when we have that awareness, then we can decide, okay, well, now where do we want to go? And then what steps are we going to take to get there?
Absolutely. Now, how did you fall into this?
Oh, that's such a great question. I actually was a project manager for the longest time. I was running a law practice for about 15 years. But through the process of becoming a mom, I had to take a hard look at certain aspects that I personally had never taken a look at. And for me, it really was the people-pleasing, over-functioning perfectionist. And so I ended up going through my own personal development journey. And through that process, recognized not only was this for me, but it was a way for me to now help others who might be struggling to find their way. And what I realized was that my professional career was leading me through this path anyway, because every time I'd work as a project manager or even a leader within the business world, I kept coming back to the people. What is it that you as an individual need? How can I help you grow? What can I do to support you? So really professionally, I kept being pulled towards the people. And so my personal journey led me to doing it on a personal level. And so that's when I dove deep into life coaching, wellness coaching, IFS training, ACT training, all of the certifications you mentioned in order to really work with people one-on-one. And that's truly where my heart is work with people one-on-one to help them figure out, like I said before, how to live to their best potential.
Awesome. And how did that impact your parenting? How did you use what you've learned as a parent?
It honestly, this journey and what I do has changed the trajectory of my parenting 10 times over. So before, I would say that I would routinely react from a very emotionally charged place. I wasn't truly aware of what I was experiencing. And so most often when I look back now, I can say upon reflection, a lot of my parenting was driven through fear of failing, fear of not doing enough, fear of, what's going to happen to my kids. It was very fear-based. But through the work that I did and recognizing and understanding who I am and what's valuable to me, I say that I have shown up much more mindfully, never perfectly. I totally own that. I don't think any of us are. But even those moments where I don't show up in the best realm of parenting, for instance, I now have the ability to see it, to own it, and to then make repair if necessary. And that's why I say the journey that I've been on has not only helped build my career and this business that I have, but it has truly impacted the relationships I have with my kids.
Awesome. And thank you for saying that even with all your 25 certifications, that you still don't do it perfectly, because I want to give parents permission to be okay with not doing it perfectly. So how can the parent who does not have a certification in anything, how can they do it to their best? Like what can you help? What can you say to them to help them do it just that much better?
You're right. And it's not about the certifications. It really is about being mindful and paying attention to what's going on for you first as a parent. I think oftentimes we jump right into the parenting of our kids, and we have to slow down and pay attention to where are you as the parent? What's happening for you emotionally? Pay attention to what those emotions are communicating to you. What is it that you need? Where are you on that spectrum of, are your needs being met? Because if your needs aren't being met, you're going to be showing up from a depleted place. So as parents, it's important for us to slow down and pay attention to what's happening for us, not in a selfish way, in a selfful way, because when we do that, we're then going to show up more fully with our children.
Thank you for saying that, not in a selfish way, because a lot of parents, I hear somebody saying, well, taking care of my needs first, isn't that being selfish?
Mm-hmm. Yes. As a people pleaser, that was my go-to immediately. It was like, wait, no, I have to take care of my kids first. Yet nobody's saying we're not going to take care of our kids. That's what I had to really ingrain was, but if I pay attention to what I'm needing and where I am emotionally, that is taking care of my kids because I'm showing up differently now.
Yeah. And I learned that the hard way, because when my children were younger, my two boys, I was a yeller. And I realized it was me coming from, like you said, the fear, just all the things. I yelled everything. Everything was just so because I was up there. I had issues regulating myself.
Yeah.
And expected my children to be regulated, even though I was not, which, I've learned now makes no sense, because they lead us. And we lead them as well. It goes both ways, I should say, right? Parents are always, when I tell my children that, I've learned from them, they're like, but you're our mom, when they were very young, it's like, yes, I learned so much from you. And so I learned not to yell, but I had to help them. I had to have them help me do that. And a lot of people might find this controversial. What I did was when I told my children, I said, listen, guys, when I yell, please remind me that only ignorant people yell. Because I had this thing with being ignorant. I always prided myself, because I have degrees. So degreed people don't yell. And of course, that's all foolishness now, right? I know that now. Back then, it just meant something to me to have a degree. Now I realize a degree, it's helpful, but it really doesn't mean a lot if it hasn't changed who you are as a person. It may change what you do, but if it doesn't change who you are, it's kind of useless, I think.
Oh
my
gosh,
opinion.
you're singing my song, because I've had definitely some experiences with people who are, yes, they're degreed, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and that shows so much dedication to that practice. But what you just said is really important. It's who you're being, right? That's different than the degree itself. But what you said too, I want to just really highlight that, the mirroring. I think we're mirrors for each other, us for our children, children for us. Because that's how I even became aware of my over-functioning people-pleasing tendencies, was watching my middle daughter do that. And when I was able to see her do it, I recognized, like, oh my goodness, that's me being mirrored back. And if I don't do that work, and if I don't take ownership of that, what happens for her? Nothing. It's just going to be repetitive, and it'll repeat until somebody takes ownership of it.
Absolutely. Now, I work with children, I work with parents, I work with teachers, and a lot of times I hear them say, I like that, and I like that you did that. Oh, I love that you did that. And I always tell them, please stop telling children that because I don't want them to care what you love. I want them to feel good about what they've done. Would that be how you would respond to that? Because I always like to check to make sure, from somebody who's doing something a little differently, what would you respond that way, or what response would you give to that?
Oh, I'm on your page with you because if you think about that sentence, I love that. It's about like us, right? Versus shifting it back to the child and saying, asking them, what was that experience like? What did you enjoy about that? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you're thinking. That's where the gold is, not just like, oh, I love that. That's great. Not to say that we can't recognize like, oh, we're really excited that our child did X, Y, Z. But I'm right there with you on that page.
Yeah, because what I found, post that, the children would come up with something and they, do you like it? And then I'd have to turn that around. How do you feel about it? Like you said, do you like it? You use red and blue and, you chose those colors. Can you tell me more about that? Because I've gotten really funny about asking why. Because I always find when you ask somebody why, it puts their, like their guard up, like, what, is something wrong? Right? So I've stopped asking why and started asking how when, what instead. Sometimes it's kind of tricky. But yeah, that's
well,
where I
why
come from.
I've noticed why for when my experience with the house, and maybe this has been with yours as well. I think that it's because they're not used to us asking how or what questions. They're almost patterned to expect a why. Because when I work with the teenagers that I work with, when I say, how is that experience for you? Or what did you think of that? They kind of stop and they're a little startled, almost like searching for the quote unquote the right answer. Because with a why, they can kind of explain it off or justify it. Because I think we're so used to that. It's just justifying the why we chose to do something. And so I love the hows and the what questions because it causes people to pause and be like, well, let me think about that. What was that experience like?
Exactly. And like you said, it brings it back to them, right? Instead of it being about us, because we're wanting to, there's so much. Like I remember, we had a foster child and every time I asked him why, which is when I learned why was a useless question to ask the child. It's useless to ask me too, because you asked me, why did I do something? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't put much thought into it. It just sort of happened. It's just something that I did. So I stopped asking why. And then I spoke to somebody who said, yeah, why kind of just puts everybody's defenses up because you're like, oh gosh, was it wrong? Is it okay? And, we're looking for that pleasing. We're looking to see, okay, for somebody to validate
Validation.
us. And I think validation should come within.
100%. It's a validation and acceptance, right? That's what we're looking for. 9 times out of 10, especially with teenagers, that is the thing that they're constantly searching for is some type of validation or some type of acceptance or belonging. But I mean, it's not just teenagers, us adults want it too. And so when we ask that why question, it puts the defenses up like, oh gosh, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong? Are you not going to like me? But those how and those what questions open that door. It's the reason why also I try not to use you statements because as soon as we say you, the other person tends to shut down.
See, I never thought enough to add that to now. Thank you. Yeah, you is something new now. Thank you. I'm just, taking all these words. I'm really working on removing but because it negates everything before that. And so, yeah, there's so much.
There's so much. And there's such little words. The you, the but, right? These 3-letter words.
Forget the 4-letter words. Oh my goodness. So give me an example then of the you and how it, affects things.
Well, I can even lean on conversations even between my children, right? So we were all home over the recent Memorial Day holiday and, just small disagreements between the children who are now adults. And they were trying to share with each other how they were feeling. And I heard it so distinctly. It would say, you said this, or you did this. And the moment that you was spoken, you could see the other person like almost like shut down from the even they're not listening anymore, because automatically they're going into survival mode. And so the brain goes into defense. How can I defend myself? And the whole conversation had shifted into almost this one accusation and then a defense, and then an accusation and a defense. And so I slowed it down and said, hey, let's shift this conversation. When, and I filled in the blank, when this happened, how did you feel? Right. And so then got my son to say how he felt. And then what was it that you needed? And then what were you really wanting from your sister? And then trying the conversation again. And sure, there were some stumbles, but it's really based off of Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. It has been a game changer for me, because if we are able to slow down enough to pay attention to what is it that we just experienced, what is it that we felt, and what is it that we need? Now the conversation is an actual dialogue with the other person around what is it that we're really requesting of the other person, rather than this give and take where it just becomes an accusation and then a defense back and forth. And we totally lose the ability to move forward in whatever it is that we're trying to do with the other person.
Right. So instead of you made me feel, because again, you give license to people to change your feelings when you do that, instead of owning your feeling.
Exactly.
Right. So nobody can make you feel anyway. And I hear that so much, even among adults. You did this to me and you did that to me. Nobody can do something to you. It's how you receive it. It's perception, and changing the perception makes everything different. I mean, if we approach it, actually, I bought a sweatshirt the other day that says it's WWJD, and it said he would love first. If we approach everything with love first, right, and understanding first, like trying to see perspective, right, perspective taking, and see where that person's coming from. Yes, it takes a little longer on the front end. However, do you agree that on the back end, it's a lot more productive?
100% it's more productive. And you're right. It is perspective taking, because when something happens, the thoughts we have about it create the story. So if we have the ability to create the story based on the thoughts we're having, that means we also can change that. So if we're able to see different perspectives, now we're opening up to there is more than one way to look at something. And I'm not saying that, people should deny their reality. I'm not saying that at all. The conversation then it becomes, when this happened, this is how I felt. Now we're opening dialogue for the other person to hear and recognize what that experience was like. And now we're in a meaningful conversation, because now that other person is invited in to say, well, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. But now that I'm aware of that, this is really what I was trying to communicate, or this is really what I was meaning to say. That's deeper conversation.
Yes. Because like you said, though, instead of being accused of something that they had no awareness of, right? Because our intent is not to hurt other people. However, things happen, right? People's feelings get hurt. And when we come from, a when as opposed to you, that it really changes how that's received. And like you said, I can see that, I saw the conversation just opening up, right? Just the waters parting and the conversation opening up. And there's just more peace when it's approached that way.
Absolutely. There's more peace, and we're also moving towards what we really want, which is connection. At the end of the day, what we really want is to connect with that other person.
Yes. Yeah, we're social beings. And it's really important that we learn to connect. So do you have any other strategies that how you teach teenagers how to connect, how to navigate this life that they've been dealt?
One of the things that I've really taken a lot of time to dive into myself, but then also with teenagers, is the concept of emotional efficacy. And what that really means is to pay attention to those emotions. I think what happens is, from a cultural standpoint, societal standpoint, most often we kind of bypass the emotions that we're having, and we just kind of either muscle through or just push past them because we don't have time for whatever the emotion is. And that's one of the things that I really work with teenagers on, is not faulting the emotions that they have. And I'm not saying that we coddle or we sit in the emotions and just, overdo and over identify with it. That's not the point at all. What emotional efficacy talks about that is saying, I can notice and name what I'm feeling. And then I can take it one step further and say, what is this as a data packet? What is this emotion communicating I either need or what value is not being met? And if we can work with teenagers on that aspect, we're allowing for it, not just it's almost like this connection from the brain and the heart space to connect with each other, because we're really not just our head. So often we're just walking around with a disconnection between our mind and our heart and our body. And teenagers, when they allow for that to happen and they can not only notice and name what they're feeling, it does allow for deeper communication with the people who are there to support them, whether it be their friends or their parents or their teachers or their coaches, whoever that is. When they know what they're feeling, they can actually communicate on a deeper level. And so I really, really work hard with the teenagers that I work with on being able to put names to those feelings, because again, so often they just broad stroke it. Well, I'm upset or I'm angry. Okay, well, let's dive a little bit deeper, because usually under anger, there are other emotions. And then I also work with them on recognizing that they're not angry. A part of them feels that way, right? Because again, we want to separate self from the emotion and recognize that it's just information.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is so powerful, Kamini. It's just, oh my gosh. The thought that I was just having, it just kind of went away. But I think too, what I was thinking, I'm going to try to summon it back. So when we allow, or when we give children, when we let them know that it's okay to feel, we prevent them from stuffing those feelings and then it becoming a problem later. Because anything that you shove down, that you pack things on top of, explodes later on. So that instead of telling them, you shouldn't feel that way. And I'm just like, I would love for us to take that out of our vocabulary, telling children, like people, how they should feel instead of being curious about how they feel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It makes me, like my skin crawl when I hear the words, you shouldn't feel that way. It's like, it like causes, it's like nails on a chalkboard when I hear that, because you're right. We shouldn't tell people how they should or shouldn't feel. It's a feeling. It's there. So instead of denying it, what is it communicating and what do you need and how can I support are better questions than don't feel that way.
Yeah, because what I've noticed, the people who, and that's just in my experience, who choose not to feel or who choose not to allow, to label their feelings, to name it, to experience it, to sit with it for a little moment, they're the ones who end up with the drug issues and the depression issues and the anxiety issues later in life.
I agree, because you're right. And you said it a few minutes ago, you stuff it down, stuff it down, stuff it down. Eventually it's going to explode in some way or the other. Or you get really good at stuffing it down that you lose connection with self completely when you've stuffed it down so much that there's that disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you don't feel, you don't experience life. It just, it seems
you're kind of on autopilot. You're on autopilot a lot, I think, is what I've seen, at least with my coaching experience with people who are really struggling to name how they feel. They're going, a lot of them are continuing, they're moving through life. They're just really not engaged with it. They're not fully connected with what their experiences are.
Wow. Yeah, and that is no way to live. I mean, we're here to experience life, right? Not just to be, not just to just go through the motions.
Right. This isn't one of those things where we're just trying to get through it.
Exactly. There's so much richness in feeling and experiencing whatever those emotions are. Oh gosh, our time is winding down. Is there anything, I know, I can't believe the time's already it's been, 24 minutes. Are there any words, anything you want to leave our audience with before we part ways? Today?
I think the one last thing that I would offer is just the concept of self-compassion, right? Just as you go through this process, wherever you are in your own life's journey, it's learning to be kind to yourself over judgment, right? Taking some time to give yourself grace and be curious with yourself more than anything.
Awesome. And how can people learn more about what you do? Because I believe what you do is so important. The world of, where there are coaches for teenagers, that's just it's such a small area or niche, as they say. that, people need you? Where can they find you?
I'm on the web at kaminiwood.com. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram with the handle It's Authentic Me.
Okay, awesome. People, please tap in, because right now, I see it. I've worked in middle schools and high schools, and our teenagers are struggling, and it's nobody's fault. Parents, you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So empower yourself, get the information that you need, reach out to Kamini and find out. Teachers, please, I ask you to do the same thing, because you also spend a lot of time with the students, and being able to approach them in a way that could be life-changing. Just a word could change a child's life. So we're here to empower you to help, parents to help your children, teachers to help your students, so that, they can contribute richly to society, and they can help one more person and, make the world a better place. So thank you so much, Kamini, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time.